Hello and welcome to this, a Land of Ice and Fire video. Now, in this video we're going to be talking about the life of Robert Baratheon. Now, for those who don't know Robert Baratheon, he was king of the Seven Kingdoms. He was married to his queen, Cersei, of the House Lannister, and he had four legitimate children, or so-called legitimate children. He had a son who only lived for a day, called Stefan, who was born months after the marriage to his wife Cersei. Then you have his son Joffrey, his daughter Marcella, and his third son, Tommen. Now, the reason I say they are supposed his sons is because it has since his death become very apparent that Joffrey, Marcella and Tommen are not his. But before I get too far ahead, let's start at the very beginning. So, Robert Baratheon was born in Storm's End to Stefan and Cassandra Baratheon in 262 AC here in Westeros. Now, by 264 he was joined by his brother Stannis, and the four of them lived a very happy life down in Storm's End, where their father was of course Lord of the castle and Lord of the region, and occasionally would be called upon to assist his Robert's father's royal cousin King Aerys Targaryen. Now, over the years, like I said, they went around the south of Westeros doing business not only for their own lives but for the lives of the royal family. So then one of the most important times that this happened was in 267, and the family went up to King's Landing for a very important occasion, which was a military tournament that was happening at the time. By 270, Robert had been warded off to another lord called Lord John Arryn of the Eyrie, because obviously to teach the future lords how best to be good to their people and to be true, honourable people for their king, they leave home at a young age and be taught a completely different regime and a different type of life from what they would be expected to live once they become lords of the region that they live in. So that is 270. And once he gets up to the Eyrie in the Vale of Arryn, he meets Lord John's other ward, a young man called Eddard Stark, the second son of the Lord of the North, Lord of Winterfell. And they get on like a house on fire. They are very, very much alike, and they get taught exactly the same thing. Even though Eddard is never expected to be the Lord of Winterfell, Lord John teaches Robert and Eddard the exact same things. It's around 272 AC, that news reaches Robert that his mother has just given birth to his youngest brother, Renly, Baratheon. And he then goes back down to Storm's End and spends time with his new brother. And this is one of the few times that the family are together for the next couple of years. Like I say, when he goes back up to the Eyrie, he concentrates on his training to be the next Lord of Storm's End, with the occasional trip either to the north with Eddard to see his family, or to go down to the capital. And like I say, the very occasional going back down to Storm's End. But he is called upon to go to Winterfell with Eddard, and once he's there, he meets Eddard's younger sister, Lady Lyanna Stark, who is an incredibly beautiful woman, and Robert falls completely in love with her. And he arranges a marriage between... He wishes to arrange a marriage between himself and Lady Lyanna. So, when he leaves, he writes a letter to his father to arrange the marriage between the son of Storm's End and the daughter of Winterfell, which both of the fathers agree, and they start the discussion. Once it had all been finalised and they were in fact engaged, Robert would occasionally go up to Winterfell without Eddard, to see Lyanna, and occasionally take Lyanna to Storm's End to meet his family. But unfortunately, in 278 AC, this whole idea of a wonderful life together got smashed quite badly, because a few months before, Robert's parents had been sent on a royal mission by the king to find Crown Prince Rhaegar Targaryen a bride from across the narrow sea. Unfortunately, that search was fruitless, and Robert's parents had to return to Westeros without any success. On their way back, they were caught in a terrible, terrible storm, and Robert, Stannis and Renly were both standing above the castle on a cliff, watching as their parents' ship was battered and finally sunk in the storm, killing all that were on board. This of course meant that Robert became Lord of Storm's End, and once this had happened, Robert didn't actually necessarily have to stay with Jon Arryn, but he decided to, and he took Stannis out of where he was fostered and returned him to Storm's End to look after little brother Renly, and Robert stayed up in the Eyrie. Like I said, from here onwards, Robert became rather impatient and wished to hurry his marriage to Lyanna up. So he would occasionally make unannounced trips up to Winterfell to attempt to hurry Lord Rickard in his decision making. Robert was in the Eyrie with Eddard when a raven arrived, and Lord Jon Arryn ran out to them and told them that Eddard's father and brother had been arrested for high treason in King's Landing, and that King Aerys has ordered the heads of Lord Robert Baratheon and Eddard Stark to be sent on spikes to him by Lord John Arryn. This would have been 282 AC, the beginning of Robert's rebellion. Robert, from once hearing this and hearing the news that his betrothed Lyanna Stark had been kidnapped by Rhaegar Targaryen, he was furious. He mounted upon his horse and raced down to Storm's End, called upon his banners to be raised, and attempted to start a rebellion. This rebellion, of course, went on until 283, in which there was a number of battles, and Robert himself became a great warrior and a great military tactician, and he won many of the battles that helped him win the war. Of course, one of the finest points of the war was his fight with his arch enemy Rhaegar Targaryen, where they were fighting in a river and face to face, and they fought up to the point where Robert, using his large warhammer, crushed the breastplate of Rhaegar's armour straight through, shattering his ribs and his lungs, killing him outright. From this happening, Rhaegar was of course dead, who was the crown prince. At the same time, Eddard had been sent to London. Sent to King's Landing, and he himself was going to go and tell the king that his son had been killed. By the time that he got there, he discovered that Lord Tywin Lannister, a former ally of the king and former ally of Robert Baratheon's father, had sacked the city. His son had slit the throat of the Mad King, King Aerys. And Eddard stood sentry to make sure no one attempted to take the crown except Robert Baratheon. Once Robert Baratheon arrived in the capital, he went into the throne room to see the devastation of the beheaded king lying at the foot of the Iron Throne, wrapped up in cloaks of Lannister soldiers, with the bodies of Aerys' grandchildren, the children of Prince Rhaegar and his wife, were also on the floor. Lord Tywin Lannister pronounced that he would name Robert Baratheon, the first of his name, in King of the Andals and the First Men, and Lord Protector, and Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. This would have been the start of Robert's reign. He began by a glorious coronation. He then appointed Lord John Arryn as his Hand of the King. Also, he requested a marriage between himself and Lord Tywin Lannister's daughter, Cersei. Within a year, in 284, Robert and Cersei had their first child, a boy, who unfortunately within hours had died. They had named him Stefan, in honour of Robert Baratheon's father. A number of years later, in 286, they had another child. They named him Joffrey Baratheon. In 270 AC, they had their first daughter, Marcella. And in 271 AC, they had their last child, Tommen Baratheon. Over the years of Robert's reign, there was peace, apart from occasional uprisings from the Greyjoys, which, once this had happened, Robert, Eddard and John Arryn and a few other lords squashed this rebellion. Unfortunately, everything went well up to 298 AC, when Lord John Arryn, Hand of the King, had been poisoned and killed, forcing King Robert to find a new Hand of the King. The only other person he could trust to do this job was his old friend Eddard Stark, which he went all the way up to Winterfell in the north of Westeros to ask him to do. Once Eddard had accepted this new job, they returned to King's Landing. And this is where all the political intrigue and difficulties that Robert would face for the final few months of his life. Finally, one day during a hunting trip, Robert was viciously attacked by a wild boar, slicing him almost in half. He returned back to his royal chambers in King's Landing, where, within hours, he had died in the presence of his brother, Lord Stannis, and his brother, Lord Renly, and his good friend and Hand of the King, Lord Eddard Stark. He had written in his will that he had wished Lord Eddard to be protector of the realm until his son, Prince Joffrey, had come of age. But he did, right up to the day he died, believe that Joffrey, Marcella, and Tommen were his children. Also, throughout his life he had a number of illegitimate children with a number of different women. His first was in 275, a girl called Mia, just outside the Eyrie, in the Vale of Arryn. In 283 he had a daughter called Bella to a prostitute during one of the battles. In 284 Robert fathered a son called Gendry to a prostitute in King's Landing. In 287 Robert fathered a son called Eric in his native Storm's End. In 290 Robert fathered two twins. Unfortunately, these two children have been unnamed in any literature that I've been able to find, but they are from Lannisport, where his wife, Cersei, comes from. And in 289, Robert has another daughter by a prostitute. This is the life of King Robert Baratheon from the land of Westeros. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you found it educational, and maybe when you're reading the books and watching the TV show, this might give you a little bit more help understanding his character. Thank you very much, and I shall see you next time. Goodbye.